The Resurrection of Silver Cloud Homestead. Prologue. The Day the Mountain Wept. 5 years before the blizzard, the sun loved the valley. It spilled gold over the Vance family's land, warming the wildflower meadows and glinting off the clear, fast-running creek where their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, loved to chase minnows. Elias Vance was a different man then, a man whose smiles were as frequent as the summer sun, his hands as skilled at holding his daughters as they were at mending a fence. His wife, Eliza, a botanist with a passion for the valley's unique flora, was the heart of their world. Their life was a quiet, beautiful tapestry woven from the land they cherished. The serpent in their Eden was Geo-Corp. It arrived not with fire, but with clipboards, surveyors, and the condescending smile of a foreman named Thorn. He spoke of progress and prosperity, words that sounded like poison in the pristine air. Elias, whose family had worked this land for generations, refused their offers. He knew the mountain's moods, the instability of the shale formations high above. He warned them. "You can't blast up there," Elias had told Thorn one afternoon, his voice calm but firm, standing on the edge of his property line. "That ridge is a poor-tempered beast. You push it, and it will answer." Thorn had simply chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. "We have geologists, Mr. Vance, experts. We know what we're doing. Don't let sentimentality stand in the way of progress." The day the mountain answered, the sky was a perfect, piercing blue. Elias was mending a roof slate on his barn, the rhythmic tap of his hammer a peaceful counterpoint to Lily's laughter as she and Eliza collected wildflowers near the creek bed at the base of the ridge. The first tremor was subtle, a deep hum that vibrated up through the soles of his boots. He looked up towards the high ridge, where Geo-Corp's operations scarred the green face of the mountain. Then came the roar. It was not a sound, but a physical force that tore the air apart. He saw it happen in surreal slow motion, a fissure cracking across the rock face, a plume of dust, and then a horrifying, unbelievable cascade of rock, shale, and ancient earth breaking free. The mountain wept, and its tears were an avalanche of death. He screamed their names, a raw, primal sound of pure agony. He scrambled from the roof, falling, running, his world narrowing to the terrifying wave of destruction roaring towards the two people who were his everything. But he was too far. The avalanche, a thundering, unstoppable god of fury, swallowed the creek, the meadow, and the light of his life in a single, deafening instant. When the dust settled, there was only silence and a vast, gray tomb where his family had been. That was the day Elias Vance died. The man who climbed the mountain to build the Silver Cloud homestead was merely his ghost, a hermit haunted by the echoes of laughter, and a crime that was officially ruled a tragic, unforeseeable accident. Part 1. A Knock in the Storm. 5 years later, the silence of the homestead was a physical weight. Elias moved through it, his life a ritual of survival. He checked his trap lines at dawn, his dogs, Ghost and Fang, silent companions at his side. He ate, slept, and read by the light of a kerosene lamp, the world outside a distant, poisoned memory. He was a man in self-imposed exile, his soul in a permafrost he believed was unbreakable. Tonight, the blizzard was a living thing, a white demon trying to claw its way into his sanctuary. As the wind howled its lament, another sound pierced the cacophony, a frantic, desperate drumming on his door. His dogs were on their feet instantly, growling, the fur on their backs raised. He moved with a predator's grace, rifle in hand. He cracked the door open. The blast of Arctic air was a physical blow. In the swirling chaos, he saw them. A huddle of women and children, ghosts of desperation materialized from the storm. "Please," their leader said, her voice a near whisper against the gale, but her eyes holding a core of fire. "You are Elias Vance," she stated, not a question. "Geo-Corp took your family. They took our homes. The man hunting us is General Blackwood." The name was a lit match on dry tinder. He began to shove the door closed, his old wound screaming at him to shut the world out. But then he saw her, a younger woman named Anya, her face a mask of pure terror, clutching a small sleeping infant. The sight of the child was a chisel strike, cracking the ice around his heart. A ghost of a memory, Lily, sleeping in her crib. With a shuddering sigh that felt like a betrayal of his own solitude, he pulled the door wide. "Get in!" They stumbled inside, bringing the cold and their fear with them. The leader, Lena, wasted no time. As the others huddled by the fire, she laid out their story. She had proof, she explained, a hardened data drive containing everything. It held the original, unaltered geological surveys proving Geo-Corp knew the ridge was unstable, the financial records of bribes paid to inspectors and officials, and something more damning, helmet cam footage from Blackwood's own mercenaries, documenting the burning of their villages, a crime they were ordered to carry out to clear the land for a new, larger mining operation. "This drive is our justice," Lena said, her eyes burning with intensity. "But it's worthless if we're dead. Blackwood knows we have it. He won't stop until he gets it back and silences us forever." While they talked, Elias noticed the cuts and deep bruises on many of them. He disappeared into a back room and returned with a wooden box of supplies. Without a word, he began cleaning and dressing a deep gash on Anya's arm. His touch was surprisingly gentle, his movements efficient. "You're a healer, too?" Lena asked softly. "You learn what you need to when you're alone," he muttered, not looking up. The act of tending to them was a crack in his armor, a flicker of the man he used to be. The strategic conversation that followed was not simple. Anya, still trembling, argued for them to take their chances in the storm. "He is one man, we are a dozen. Blackwood has 50. This is a tomb." "It is a fortress," Lena countered, her voice sharp. "We chose it for that reason. We will not run." Elias, silent until now, stepped in. He unrolled a map on his table. "She's right," he said, his voice commanding their attention. "Running is death, but attacking blindly is suicide." His finger traced the terrain. "Here, this pass is their only approach, but a direct confrontation is what they expect. We won't give it to them. We will let the mountain and this cabin fight for us."
Part 2. The Devil's Chessboard. Miles away, in a state-of-the-art mobile command center, General Marcus Blackwood stared at a thermal image on a screen. A single, large heat signature, the cabin, and several smaller ones huddled within. He was a man of cold, sharp angles, his uniform immaculate even in the field. The pressure on him from Geo-Corp's board was immense. The data drive was a lit fuse, and his career was tied to extinguishing it. His son, Lieutenant David Blackwood, stood nearby, looking uneasy. "Father, my scouts report extreme weather conditions. Perhaps we should wait for the storm to pass." "The storm is our cover, David," the general said, without looking at him. I want that drive before sunrise. Send in Harkin's squad. Standard retrieval. No witnesses. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir," David said, his voice barely a whisper. He hated this. The burning villages, the terror in the civilians' eyes. It wasn't the clean, honorable service he had imagined. He looked at his father's relentless profile and felt a growing dread. Back at the cabin, the first attack came with a brutal efficiency. Elias and the women were ready. They didn't repel the assault with a wall of fire, but dismantled it with cunning traps and precise guerrilla tactics. They used the storm as a weapon, its roar masking their movements. When the last of Harkin's squad lay silent in the snow, a grim victory settled over the cabin. But it was short-lived. A new wave of headlights illuminated the clearing, the main force. And this time, they weren't approaching carelessly. They were fanning out, a professional, overwhelming force. Elias's hand went to the detonator for the explosives planted on the ridge. It was the logical move, the final move. But then, drifting on the wind from the enemy camp, came the unmistakable cry of Sarah's baby. Lena saw his hesitation. "Elias, we have no choice." "There is always a choice," he shot back, his voice raw. "We are not them. We do not sacrifice children for victory." The new plan was a desperate two-pronged gambit, a controlled inferno of chaos from the front, led by Lena, to pin down the main force, and a ghost mission for Elias and Anya to slip through the chaos, rescue Sarah and her child, and, if possible, complete a new, audacious objective: capture David Blackwood. If they could take the general's son, they held the ultimate bargaining chip. The battle was a whirlwind of sound and fury. Lena's warriors fought with the ferocity of cornered lionesses, their knowledge of the forest making them seem like a much larger force. But the mercenaries were relentless. Ilara, the fierce warrior, fell while saving Anya from a grenade, her sacrifice buying them precious seconds. In the midst of that brutal ballet, Lena and her remaining fighters stormed the command tent. Simultaneously, Elias and Anya executed their stealth mission. They reached Sarah's tent, a small island of terror in a sea of violence. "We're here to get you out," Elias whispered. They bundled up the baby, and with Sarah in tow, began their retreat. Their path intersected with David Blackwood, who was moving to reinforce the line. The confrontation was swift. Anya engaged his guards, while Elias, appearing like an apparition from the blizzard, disarmed and subdued the terrified lieutenant.
Part 3. Dawn of a New World. The standoff was surreal. The clearing was lit by military headlamps, the swirling snow catching the light like a million tiny diamonds. General Blackwood stood, his face a mask of fury, his army held at bay. "You have my son," he bellowed. "Release him, and I will grant you a swift death." Lena stood firm. The captured lieutenant held before her, Ilara's loss fueling the fire in her eyes. "Your threats are as empty as your soul, General." Elias stepped forward, positioning himself between Lena's righteous fury and Blackwood's arrogant evil. He looked not at the general, but at his son. "This is your moment, David," Elias said, his voice calm and clear amidst the tension. "Your father's path ends in darkness. You don't have to walk it with him. The truth, it's all that matters now." Prodded by Elias's words and shattered by the night's horror, David broke. "He did it all!" he screamed, tears freezing on his cheeks. "The landslides, the fires, the bribes, it's all true. It's on the drive."
As if his confession were a summons, the wail of approaching sirens sliced through the night. The federal agents, acting on a tip and tracking the satellite signature of the firefight, had arrived. The board was set, and the corrupt king was in checkmate. The morning after was quiet, the world blanketed in pristine white, hiding the scars of the battle. The air smelled of cold pine and smoke. As the federal agents processed the scene and took a cooperating David and a defeated General Blackwood into custody, Elias, Lena, and the survivors stood before the ruins of the homestead. "It's gone," Elias said, his voice hollow as he stared at the wreckage of his 5-year sanctuary. "No," Lena said softly, stepping beside him. She handed him the data drive, which she had retrieved from its hiding spot. "A prison is gone. What we do now, that is what matters." She looked at her people, then back at him. "We could leave, scattered to the winds, or we could stay. The Ashkawi know how to build from ashes. You know how to command a mountain. Together, we could build a home, a real one." Elias looked at her, at the weary but hopeful faces of her people, at Sarah holding her baby, a symbol of the future he had chosen to save. The solitude he had clung to for so long suddenly felt like what it was, a cold, empty cage. He took a deep breath of the clean mountain air. For the first time in 5 years, it didn't taste of ash and memory, but of possibility. He gave a slow, deliberate nod. "All right, Lena. Let's build a home."
Epilogue, 1 year later. Spring had returned to the Widow's Peak, this time with a vibrant, tenacious life. In the sheltered basin, a mile from the ruins of the old homestead, a new settlement was taking shape. It was not just a collection of cabins, nor was it a traditional village, but a beautiful, unique fusion of both. Sturdy log homes built with Elias's expert craftsmanship stood alongside communal longhouses decorated with the intricate carvings of the Ashkawi. Elias was no longer a ghost. The gaunt, haunted look was gone, replaced by the steady calm of a man with purpose. He was teaching a group of children, including a toddler-aged Sarah's son, how to track animals, his laughter echoing in the valley. Lena, a natural and respected leader, directed the planting of new crops in terraced gardens they had carved from the hillside. The data drive she and Elias had delivered had led to the complete dissolution of Geo-Corp's regional operations and the conviction of a dozen corrupt officials. Justice, it turned out, was a slow seed, but with courage it could grow even in the rockiest soil. That evening, the entire community gathered around a great bonfire. Stories were told, songs were sung, and food was shared. Elias sat next to Lena, watching the firelight dance on the faces of their people, a sprawling, unconventional, resilient family. He looked up at the silhouette of the mountain against the star-dusted sky. It was no longer a place of exile or a monument to his grief. It was simply home. The resurrection of Silver Cloud Homestead was complete, not in the rebuilding of its timbers, but in the rebirth of the lives it now sheltered.